Or I guess, so we just exited the Culture Museum in Stavanger. I mean, it was interesting. You know, it's not a big museum. There's not a whole lot to see. There's a few stuffed animals. I mean, I would probably, you know, one visit is probably enough. But it was kind of neat. You know, I like how they tied in a lot of things together. Like they showed different clothes, different attires of different nationalities, and you can sort of make your own connections on where do you see the cultures interacting and the similarities between different cultures. So it was neat to see, and it was really neat to see some of the skeletons of the local animals, like the whales and the dolphins. So, you know, if you have the time, and especially if you have kids, I think they would enjoy that. But we are off to the next one, which is actually called the Archaeology Museum, and I think that's where you want to go if you want to see some of the ancient history from Norway. Let's check it out. Or yes, well, this is already pretty cool. So there's a large amount of artifacts in this museum, so I'm excited to show you around. Little models of a Viking longhouse. Nice. Here's a little cool exhibition. So this is just what the Vikings might have looked like when they would jump off those ships. Can you imagine just sitting there on the coast of England and minding your own business, living your life peacefully with your family, and then all of a sudden a boat comes up to shore and these folks jump out screaming, dashing their swords, fire raining down from their arrows, you know, killing everything they see on their way, pillaging, raping, you know. It would be a terrifying sight, and you can imagine the kind of stories that started circulating after these guys got to England. This is really neat. Look at this. This is called the egg stone. This was found by the bridge, and what it says is literally Saxi made giving thanks to God this bridge for the soul of his mother, Turid. And this is dated to the first half of 11th century. So this is really neat. It's sort of like the stones we saw along the way when we drove to Burgund, but this one is obviously in a much better shape. You can see how the runes were intended to look. They were quite colorful, painted in red, well carved and then painted in red. It's really neat. Look at that. So this would be the younger Futhark after the runic language had a transition. See more swords here. I think probably Viking Age swords. Here you have more runic stones, but these were actually used to claim fishing rights. So they would stand by the river where a family or a clan would live, and they would say who did this river belong to, and this would sort of work as the fishing control. Here we go, another one. It's kind of neat. So these date back to about 1,000 years back, 11th century. Wow, this is a fantastic museum. Look how many different artifacts they have. The Nordic gold, glass. It's just fantastic, and the quality of it is superb. You can see these intricate rings and other jewelry pieces up close. Very nice. Yo, there you go, Roman glass. So this would be carried all the way from Roman Empire to be used here in Norway. Now this is really neat. I'm not sure if this is the original or not, but this is an example of what rock art would look like at the Bronze Age. So this is 1800 to 500 BC. As you can see, the sophistication of ideas was little less. But what we can see is the worship of the sun. And something like this, you would see a sun being in the boat, you know, basically going from sunrise to sunset. And what is interesting about this is reflected that people at the time already had a following for the deity of sun, and they saw life in a cyclical way. All right, so we're gonna walk into the Bronze Age period. Some of the stone carvings from the Bronze Age is found here. So look at how cool this exhibition is. So you can see a projection of a sun god, and you can see it's going up and then setting down there, and as it progresses from one position to another, the colors in the room change. So right now we are at high noon, and it's the most bright period. But look at this. Look at this. As it's setting, it will start getting darker. There you go. As you can see, the sun is now setting and the room is becoming darker. This is so unique because, as I understand, the Bronze culture, the Bronze Age culture was very much tied to the worship of the sun. And so all the artifacts that we see here sort of reflect that, a very ancient Norwegian religious culture. It's beautiful. And there you go. See, now we can see the sun in the ship traveling through the night to rise the next morning, and this is what people would worship. Something interesting about the artifacts that we see today is that a lot of them were found at the places of sacrifice, and that's why they got preserved. So, you know, somebody or something would be sacrificed, it would be thrown in the bog or buried, and that's where a lot of these objects came from. So interesting to know. Here we can see the a stone slab, and this apparently stood at the burial chamber. This slab was decorated with geometrical figures. What they suppose it is a figure of a sun rising from behind the grave mountain. You can see the exhibition, the sun is just rising right now. So this is, you know, the stone would be engulfed in the rays of sun in the morning, and this would represent how the dead merged with the sun as the two traveled towards the other world. We can see some more animal designs, some other rocks here, some more cool examples of Bronze Age swords, little image of how people lived, the place of their shelter, you know, a typical by the shore station where they would fish and hunt and cook. Look at this, they had what in Canada would call it teepees. Really neat. Look at that, that is really cool. This is just a little scenery of what a burial would look like. So you would have a mound, you know, here's a procession carrying the deceased person into this rock chamber. You would see stones around it, and it would be covered by a slab on top, and probably a rune stone placed on top of it as well. Oh my god, and look at this. So here in this one of the rooms in the museum, we found a skeleton of a 12,500-year-old polar bear. Look at that. This thing was a beast. 600 kilograms. Look at the claws. It's like a velociraptor or something like that. Man, I would not want to see this thing while hiking. Look at that. This beast. Wow. Here's some more symbols. So this is a typical for Bronze Age religious symbol of a sun. Here's the symbol of a sun being carried in a ship overnight, symbolizing the journey of the dead people exiting this world and parting into the afterworld. but then symbolically representing how they would rise again with a rising sun, maybe a new generation. Some more symbols of that time. This is also a very cool pavilion. Look at this. It sort of goes over the history of rock art from the ancient times. You can see where the major finds were located, the style of art, what it would represent, different things that you could see. For example, different deities, or to signify religious leaders, the shamans of that area. Look at that. A really, really cool exhibit. If you're into ancient Norwegian rock art, you should definitely take a stop by here and read up. So now we're diving even deeper into the history. Look at this. This is a fragment of man's skull. It is said that it is about 1,300 years old. The man himself is said to be 50 years old, and he has drowned. That's how he died. Now, it kind of makes you wonder, what happened? Did he fall off the boat and drown? Perhaps maybe he died in some kind of battle on the waters? Or maybe it was some kind of part of an ancient sacrifice. Perhaps we'll never know. What do we have here? Let's see. Look at this, and here we have a skeleton of young boy or girl. They're not sure. From 8,000 years ago. Can you imagine? Look at that. 8,000 years ago. There's no signs of a violent death, so it's hard to say why this person died, but here they are, laying here, reminding us of our history. Look at this. Here we have another stone with runic inscriptions, and this one is supposedly been written by a father to his son that has since passed away, and the stone was supposed to protect his sons from the underworld creatures and keep him safe in the other life. This dates to 4th century, so this would be Old Futhark, the most ancient version of the runic language. Look at these. Look how cool they are. All right, guys. Well, that museum was awesome. So if you have the time, stop by the Archaeology Museum here in Stavanger. There's some cool artifacts from the Iron Age, from Bronze Age, from Stone Age. It's not a big museum. You can probably do it in half an hour to 40 minutes. I mean, you obviously can spend more time if you want to read everything, which I would suggest, because it is fantastic. It's well outlaid, and it's definitely worth a trip. So stop by Archaeology Museum. Very neat.